If you haven't already checked out what the session is about, we really wanted to hold a space this year to just have that intentional space to cultivate cooperation between our work, particularly food recovery organizations, but also anyone who's dealing with food is going to deal with food that might be wasted and operations of food recovery. And so in this session, we want to acknowledge and celebrate our work, get into some of the messy stuff, hopefully laugh a little at some of the things that we all go through collectively recovering food. And we want to do some work connecting with each other in a really intentional way to see if we can walk out with actually some ideas of ways we could partner with each other in this room, right? So before we get into that, Nita is going to have us do a culture share, hopefully for some laughter.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, everyone. Thank you for making it here after that lovely last session and lunch, and that you're not sleeping yet. We're really happy. So hopefully you won't fall asleep. As you know, we're going to be talking about food recovery and the organizations that do this daily work, which is frequently not pretty and, dare I say, very messy. So what we wanted to do is see if anyone would like to share some story or tale about something messy, yucky, crazy that happened while you were doing food recovery. And I can start if that would help. During COVID, when it first hit, and Produce Good, which is, I'm the co-executive director of Produce Good, and we are a gleaning group. We would be picking large orchards full of citrus, and we happened to be at a property, I believe it was Escondido, and we had volunteers that had come. We had picked 2,000 pounds of tangelos, I think, beautiful. And we were normally working with the food bank who would come and pick up the large totes. Well, COVID happened, the supply chain broke, there was no one to pick up the fruit. And we were there in the hot sun. I'll never forget, because everyone had their masks on because we didn't know what was going on. If the fruit, we had to wipe, we had gloves, we had masks. It was about 90 degrees. The fruit is fast, ripening. And we don't know where to put it. We don't know where it's going to go. And we had to call people. The owners were so wonderful. They were calling their neighbors. We had folks coming over from all different parts of our world, vodka makers, friends of friends, just to get those almost rotting tangerines, 2,000 pounds, that's a lot of tangerines, out of that box. And it was not pretty, but we did it. So what about you? Anybody?
Just because Nita mentioned COVID, I work at San Diego Food Bank, so a lot of businesses like restaurants were unfortunately going under during that time, so we got a lot of phone calls about distributors, restaurants needing to donate their items. And I will never forget, there was somebody that owned a restaurant that had a friend of a friend that had whole hogs that he wanted to donate. Like entire hogs, not alive, but just in the back of somebody's truck. And so I had to explain to him food safety and why that was not a thing that I could accommodate, but maybe they could, contact a butcher shop and work with a local org or something like that. I have no idea. I don't want to touch personally an entire hog, but that visual will never leave my brain for the rest of my life.
Now, not ours either. Thank you. Wow, that was amazing. Oh.
So I'm with the Foundry in Escondido, and we do food recovery. And my son sometimes volunteers, and he went to Aldi to do a pickup, but their donation items were not well marked. So he actually took the wrong products. He took store products, so he had to haul them all back and then pick up the right stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Before we get into hearing from just some stories from partner organizations that you are probably familiar with, Produce Good and Plus Box, and then I Love to Glean and Life Acts, I want to just do some context for why we're here today, and just share a little bit of, I would say, reflections that we've been having, not not just at the San Diego Food System Alliance, but like in some of these conversations, and hopefully some reflections you've been having too. So this is not like by any means me trying to teach you of things. It's a lot of things you already know. But just to set the stage on like, well, what are we actually working towards together? So go ahead, you next slide. And so this session, as I mentioned, is really about how we can build strength and power from the ground up and through our roots. And so it's really about strengthening our connections so we can share stories, identify new collaborations, mobilize together. That's the theme of this track of sessions right now, and meet new people. And so, you go next slide. Because we know there is power in sharing our resources and working collaboratively. And so you're probably thinking like, well, what would that look like to share resources? Hopefully we'll have some stories today about what that can look like, but really to think a little bit more about how that looks like for you. But also want to acknowledge that like these deep connections do already exist in San Diego County and beyond. There are hundreds of organizations, as you know, in this room, and people who aren't here because they're probably recovering food, who are actively recovering food and feeding communities. And so, you know, the foundation is there, but it's really about how are we going to move forward together. And so I wanted to just kind of identify, this is almost like you're seeing my internal process on the screen a little bit. Like, how do we look at the work that's already been underway, where we've identified these needs in the region and started to fill those gaps? And then now, how do we go from where we're at today? So some of these things may look familiar to you because you were probably part of building them. And so the first one, you know, one of the first things that has happened, you know, in the region over the last, 8 years was, you know, developing this food donation action plan. And so this was in 2018. There was a survey of 162 food pantries. The image you're seeing is the progress report from 2020. And so some things that I think are really important to note is that in 2018, so this is, you know, I can't do math right now, what is that, 6 years ago, 50% of the pantries who I took this survey indicated they needed at least one cargo van or one truck within the next year, so by 2019. 60% of respondents indicated a need for more cold storage space. And there were a lot of key themes in this, like permitting needs, food safety, refrigeration, infrastructure, perceived liability, of kind of that narrative, a lot of which has been worked on a lot since this, right? So there was a progress report in 2020. This is just a few highlights from that, really talking about all the work that was done to waive health permit fees, to support nutrition pantry programs, to do some initial investments in freezers and coolers and freezer blankets for refrigerated trucks. So this was kind of like, okay, so by 2020, we're seeing like, this is where we're going. And we're also all feeling, you know, in 2020, that there's a lot more support we need. We go to the next one. Fast forward another year, through this process, you know, we were developing as a community Food Vision 2030, where we identified collectively that scaling up food waste prevention, recovery, and recycling was a key priority. And I think specifically at this time, the conversations we were all having was that, you know, we're recognizing that food recovery organizations lack the capacity to meet the need, especially after SB 1383, that it's like that gap just is getting bigger. And I said ambitious targets that were set by SB 1383, right? So we're trying to catch up. And so for this reason, that's why, you know, in Food Vision 2030, like food recovery infrastructure was a key, you know, identified strategy and need, as well as logistics and accessing centralized data. So these were all named as like core challenges in that process. And again, some of the strategies probably should look familiar, that we need support scaling up food recovery logistics, and we need more financing, right? I see a trend here. It's like, okay, so now we're in 2021, this is released, we know we're all on the same page. And then the next one, we're still doing more work. I see faces in this room that I know were very deeply involved in getting this food recovery capacity survey out in 2021 to 2022, which is, again, we're looking at another assessment of what are the capacity needs, what's changed since 2018, since that initial food donation action plan, especially post-COVID, and What do we need to be prepared for, with SB 1383 implementing? And so this was from 227 hunger relief organizations across the county, and the majority of respondents at this time did not have a refrigerated truck and depended on volunteers and volunteer vehicles for pickup. And this question to me was the most interesting that I put on here, but there's many other questions you can read from the survey results. But when asked, where would you prioritize funds if you were to get a large grant, where would be the first things to do? It was overwhelmingly paying and hiring staff, additional freezers, refrigerators, warehouse space, and refrigerated vehicles. And I'm this is it's just so helpful to see in this way that we really have, I think, as a region, a pretty narrow focus here of okay, I see where we can really support each other. The next one. And then now, fast forward to today, the county is developing a food justice community action plan. So hopefully you've participated. Raise your hand if you know what this food justice community action plan is. Okay. It's also telling some good outreach happening, right? So the county is developing, through a collaborative effort, this community action plan, which was directed, by the county board of supervisors. And part of this, one of the biggest parts of this, is addressing food security and nutrition security in San Diego, which is also about recovering food and feeding communities. And so in this opportunity, which is happening now, actually, the room next to us is the workshop for this food justice community action plan. Some emerging themes coming out of it already. I think they're sharing them right now. So you're kind of in two sessions at once, because I'm going to share them with you too. That some of the emerging themes coming from this development process are capacity and funding needs. And this is not just for food recovery organizations, it's really across all the work. Connectivity and logistics, as well as preparedness for a crisis, and looking at the current moment as a food security crisis, right? And so some of the strategies I've heard that are kind of starting to be floating around, and that are probably, if you peek in there after, you'll be able to see on some of the walls, some of the posters they have on the wall, is securing long-term funding for food programs. So this is kind of across the board food programs. Developing a food hub network, as I've seen it written, which is really about connecting organizations, households, businesses, more connected to do this work together. And then supporting the development of regional food recovery hubs to help with that logistics and infrastructure and sharing resources. So why am I telling you all this? You're probably thinking I've heard these things. Well, I wanted you to see it all together, because when I looked at it all together like this, it was really helpful to think through, okay, we've done a lot together as a region. We see a lot of opportunity and needs and gaps here. And amidst all these efforts, we know that food recovery operations remain very underfunded, and that without the proper infrastructure and the increase that's happening of all the amount of food that we're getting calls for every day, it's really hard to meet that demand, right? So today is about how do we do that together? We have limitations, of course. So I know all of us tomorrow are how do I solve this? We need a lot of money, we need a lot of infrastructure, but there are some things we can do in this room collectively. So, I think that's that's the opportunity here. And I'd like to pause. Does anyone just have thoughts coming in their head, comments? Before we move on, questions?
We've done a lot of data gathering, and it's time to take action.
Yay. You can go to the next slide, Nita. Yes, I will come. Yeah, we like videos. So I'll do it in a second for you, Nita. Don't worry. She's what do I touch right now? So one of the things that we've been doing at the San Diego Food System Alliance over the last year and a half, is we had brought together a small group of food recovery organizations, small grassroots organizations, to really think through in a almost working group, small action group type of way, what does this region need right now? How can we support both collectively and also from the Alliance? What role can we play in supporting this, especially knowing that funding is a big need, policy changes may be a big need. And so through that processing group, one of the things that came out of it was the desire to highlight our stories in a really raw way, and also to just talk about it, like talk about what's really happening. And so one project that came out of that was a short video. The messy video. Yes, the messy stuff. Nita likes talking about the messy stuff. And so what you're gonna see here is like the annual gathering version of the video. And then early next year, we're gonna release a longer full video and hopefully do a little like food recovery networking night and film release. So we're gonna give a sneak peek of that. You'll see some familiar faces here in the room, and hopefully this gives you an idea of like some of the work we're hoping to do together.
So many challenges that nonprofits face. It's kind of amazing that they even exist, like so many of them do. And we love every one of them. And I mean, any person who's run a nonprofit can tell you like the absolute astonishment of all of these volunteers, these people who come and help you every day because they're good people. They're not getting paid, they're volunteers, they are doing it out of the goodness of their heart. But we shouldn't have to rely on that all the time. I mean, that just is wrong. I mean, clearly there's a place to volunteer, right? That's fantastic. But we should not be relying on volunteers for things that we should be paying people to do. The end.
A little rundown of the operation. There's the Amazon pickup as early as 6 o'clock in the morning, so they have to be up at Claremont. That's where that truck comes in. And while they're loading up, we're over here at the warehouse at 6:30, and we're kind of preparing everything, getting all the boxes set up, getting first in, first out. So food that has come in throughout the week, we're taking it in and making sure that comes out first. And all the new stuff we're putting into the refrigeration to be distributed throughout the week.
We literally get phone calls, text messages, emails every day, no kidding. And there are times that we are offered pallets worth of food. As you've seen our facility, we can only accommodate so much. And during the week, because we are 100% volunteer driven, we would do our best to say yes, and we would call our network of our lovely, wonderful collaborators in the food recovery world. And we literally are like, can we meet at this spot? Can we meet at the back of the receiving of such and such store? Or can we go to your distribution? We'll help drop it off. Can you come pick up? We do everything that we can to make sure to not say no, because we know where it's gonna land.
We believe in cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships. And the reason why that's important is because one agency can't do it all. But then if we all have that, our one piece, because we all have a niche, and if we add our niche with another organization's niche, and then we can do more. And then we can also come together as a collaboration and go to our city government, go to our federal government, because we'll go in force.
I don't think these larger industrial solutions they haven't worked. They haven't worked already. So we need to get down to the granular, right? And get down to where the people are. What do they need? What do the communities need? Talk to everyone in each community. We have got to work actually on the ground with the people who live in these places. That's the only way it's going to happen.
So we're here today to talk a little bit about how we came together as partners, Plusbox and Produce Good. We met actually in 2020 during the pandemic. We're introduced to each other by Healthy Day Partners, who I'm sure a lot of you know. MIM has introduced a lot of organizations to each other, but this one, it really has stuck and evolved over time. Greg's in the back there too from Plusbox, and we've got our team here. Over time, we started, so we're a food recovery organization. I think y'all know what we do. We recover from backyards, grocers, farms, farmers markets. And we had started supplying Plusbox a little here and there, and over time that picked up a little bit. And then when Danny came on board in 2021, that started to pick up a little bit more. How many boxes were we doing by the time 2021 was over? Like, you had ramped up to
200 to 750 a week.
So their need was really picking up, and they were servicing that need, and we were supplying them, which was amazing. And then we started to cooperate in different ways, doing presentations together. Wes and Nita did a podcast. We did a presentation for CRRA this past summer. Wrote a couple of grants together. Actually, were granted some funds, to pay for the food to be recovered and redistributed, which was kind of a first, right? Somebody who wanted to do both those things. It's not just the environment, but it was actually like food equity and the environment together. So, we put our heads together and we really started thinking about that message about food justice. And we've been trying to work with cities. We've done a presentation for Vista City Council. We just did an RFP for the city of Carlsbad. And again, we're trying to push that message. Yes, maybe there are environmental funds here, but, let's service the social equity side. Let's find solutions to solve that problem together. And the partnership just, I think, continues to blossom. And it's very genuine. So we're friends.
Yeah, you're my friend.
Yeah. Ready to say something? Something good? What do we, maybe like about our resources? How we share?
Yeah, I guess. Well, naturally, we share a lot of produce. But I think beyond just the physical resources, like you mentioned, there's this sense of sharing and not hoarding resources, a bit of a collective, right? Like, I think someone mentioned, it's like you have a niche and you know what you're good at. It's like we got this distribution part and you guys are like the rescue food, what? Resources, produce, obviously we talked about funding, but I think beyond that, I think when we think of resources, we think of money and we think of physical things and tangible things and pecuniary things. But what's been a shift in perspective is sharing knowledge and realizing there's a plurality of knowledges, right? And someone's lived experience is different, and that's tacit knowledge I can use, and we can better serve our communities through that collective relational approach. So I think that's a huge resource that we're sharing.
Yeah, and sometimes we had a van breakdown a couple weeks ago. So we do like some of that physical sharing too. We don't worry about it. We don't say, hey, you owe me a tank of gas. Sometimes we trade services. So these guys have been giving us boxes. So we'll take food boxes out to some of our feeding partners every once in a while. We supply them the food, they give us the boxes. And it's really just kind of a lovely, I think, full circle in terms of everybody doing what they're good at. You guys have this great space. We don't have a lot of space, so sometimes we can lean into that, but sometimes we can have challenges.
Yeah, our truck's name is Gunther, and his name is Gunther because he just embodies like a cigar smoking, go get 'em, like had a long day kind of vibe. And that's what, like, challenges, right? That's one of the things. We share resources. He didn't start one day, and we had these boxes to deliver, and we called up the friends, and they were like, we have a vintage van for you. And we got to do our deliveries, right? So it's like that sharing of resources in so many different ways it's very different than, I think, larger kind of top-down approaches to some of these real complex issues.
And then we'll keep talking about some of the challenges, and we'll hopefully be hearing more about yours too again. But so our model, I think, is really focused on this idea of Plusbox has what they call a plus zone. It's where they centralize in an area, and we're just using the example of the city of Carlsbad, We have a model that we call crop circle, and that's where we try to recover and supply in the same community. And if we can get volunteers in that same community, even better, because we're keeping the carbon footprint down, and that's what we aim to do. So if Plus Box, for instance, is looking to work in an area like Carlsbad, supply schools there, we can be doing recovery there, we can get it to them, it stays in that community, and it's even the same members of the community that are doing the recovery. So this is the model we're really trying to take around. We're trying to share this with the municipalities, trying to get government to pay a little bit more attention to it. And I want to say like 65,000 pounds we've supplied Plus Box this year. And we have many partners, but again, that's for a small partner, that's huge, the work that we're doing together.
The BS, can I say bullshit? Let's get the bullshit out of the way.
Say it.
Yeah, there's a lot of bullshit. Cool.
Yeah. Like what? Tell us, like what kind of
Like
things?
rats and donation dumping. There's a lot of intricate things, right? Like the logistics, every week is different. And again, it mentioned in the video, like I could get 54 boxes of produce donated, or I could get 7, and having a cooler that just remains the same size, like things like capacity, logistics, those kinds of things, getting donations and they haven't quite been gleaned the way, and then, sometimes there's rats and you're like, I can't do anything with this. And then there's the flip side of like proper waste management when you have those kinds of the dumping or having to recycle things properly, compost things, call up the friend and be like, do you need 52 pallets? Because I need to recycle these and they're sitting in my warehouse, right? So a lot of that going on. I think I probably missed a lot of, and cars breaking down.
And a little bit of a point, so what's interesting now what we're seeing happen is that with everything that's happened at the environmental level in terms of trying to do the food recovery, so many of these smaller organizations are just, bearing the weight of every problem. I mean, having to buy extra green space so they can get remove everything that's rotten or that's not edible, that's become their job, along with the packaging that Danny mentioned. And that costs money, right? You're having to pay extra money for a green bin. You're having to pay extra money to recycle all of this packaging. Plastic. Yeah. I mean, that's a specialty, right? So you may not even have someone at your business complex where you work who even deals with trying to recycle plastics.
Shout out to Plastic Beach. They'll come get your plastic wrap from any pallets. They're awesome. They're really friendly too.
Yeah, so with that, we'll cut to the solution. So how do we feel about a solution? Is there one?
Many solutions, always. I think local solutions are extremely important for such a variety of reasons. I mean, we've touched on environment, and I think you can't talk about one thing without talking about the other. Everything is so many intersections, right? You can't talk about environmental justice and not talk about social justice and social equity. So I guess I'll break it down in a few. I think adaptive capacity is one really huge reason why local solutions just work. The ability to go into communities with, flexibility and nuance and be able to kind of tailor your solution to cultural differences and transportation and barriers to access and those kinds of things. And a lot of times we are from those communities, and so we know them on a very relational level. And that's something that can't really be, you can't scale that kind of thing, right? You can't really put it in a data point, and it doesn't happen with this top-down, this really siloed approach. It happens from a collective communal effort. So adaptive capacity, community engagement, and a sense of ownership. I think when you're working with the community and you have volunteers, that sense of responsibility for your community is quite empowering. And I think that's something that's huge, especially when it's like doom scrolling and no hope, right? To feel empowered by changing a piece of your community. That's huge. And then, environmental sustainability, right? Local solutions offer obviously less carbon footprint, the less transportation costs and all that. But I think it involves a sense of care, right? From producer to consumer, you have this care and this convivial sense of like, you care about the people who are producing it and all the way down the line. So it's a sense of connectivity that often gets lost on like a blanketed approach, I feel like.
And it's interesting, but these things that Danny is talking about and conversations that we've had together, you know, really learning from each other and just like opening our eyes to understanding like what other organizations are going through, you know, the role they're playing and the, you know, along the distribution chain or from production to supply. I think, you know, if you're just listening, I mean, even listening to Wes, who runs Plusbox, talk about this idea of nutrition security, you know, we may be kind of overhung on the environmental side and forgetting about that. And as all of us get into our work, I think that's really easy to do. But, you know, just getting back to the small, we've been talking about this. Yeah, the root. And Danny also brought up this other lovely idea of, you know, instead of thinking about scale, just thinking about replication. I mean, forget about scale, right? We're talking about small models that work locally that you can apply over and over again in sustainable ways. But really we have to get to know each other to do that in a true way, like you said, care. So we're pretty fortunate that we found each other, and we hope that, I know there's a lot of other organizations that are also doing that, and we really want to hear your stories, because we feel like this is, we're off to a good start, right? I mean, got a ways to go, but we appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about it. Thanks.
What else are we doing? That's it. I think that's it. Yeah.
I feel like you two are very humble, but it was very, very sweet to watch you have a conversation. I'm just going to pass it right off to one more also dynamic duo. I just realized that will probably also make you giggle and laugh. And then we'll get into like working together. So Elizabeth, Karen, you can stand, you can sit, you can walk around. You can have 2 mics, 1 mic.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, I'm going to be like Asian tourist, and I'm going to take a picture of us, because I want to report it to my Asian dad, of course, who's going to be like, how many people were there? Were they all paying attention? Were they happy? Yes, like that. It's going to be an A+, okay? Yeah, we're going to kind of do like a selfie here, right? Okay, Karen, good. Ready? Now, everybody look like they're interested and happy, okay? At the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, woo! I think, of course, a little video, too. Okay, at the count of 3, everybody go, woohoo! Oh, how about Papa Ed? He's the legend, okay? Oh, a donor's calling right now. Okay, now, call back.
Really?
Yeah, they're calling right now. This is crazy, right? Okay, here goes video. Say, hi, Papa Ed. Hi, Papa Ed. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you for indulging. All right.
Okay, so
Yeah,
he's a king. So my name is Karen Clay. My organization is I Love to Glean. And I met Elizabeth in 2017 when I was working with Harvest Crops, which is another residential gleaning organization out of Lemon Grove. And we were both at a Beautify Chula Vista event, which was actually October 2017, same month as now. And Harvest Crops had volunteers that were meeting at a central location at the event. And then they were going out with Sergio, who was in charge of Harvest Crops, and they were picking locally and then bringing it back to the event. So we ran into having a lot of excess produce, and we were introduced by Manuel Madrona from the city of Chula Vista. We were introduced to each other, and Elizabeth ended up getting the food. And it was just the beginning of a new relationship. A good one. Yeah. So let's see, I think that's my spot, right? Yeah. I'm done. The other thing that we have, one of the other things is that we've had a couple Target adventures, okay? And where the Target stores, all their cold storage would go down. And where the food, of course, had to be immediately rescued and moved out. And we're talking about banks of coolers, okay? And so we delivered huge quantities in my van of yogurt and cheese to like the Ramada Inn for the flood victims, and also to the Migrant Center. They also benefited from that. But anyway, I think that's it for me. Sorry.
I'm gonna take a seat. Okay. I know we're so short, so sometimes we have to stand so everyone can see us, but I think we're all good here, right? Okay. So I was going to do this little monologue, but I don't think I'm like mental or anything, but an example of one of the craziest, I was going to go up and say something about a messy day, right? But just like we're taking a picture and someone's calling to donate food, right? But a crazy day is like this. Okay, this is a Tuesday. Okay, oh, I have some video pictures here. It's a Tuesday, and I'm like waking up in the morning. I'm like, oh God, thank you, Jesus. It's my off day, like there ever is an off day in food rescue, right? I get to quietly work on all those reports that Feeding San Diego and San Diego Food Bank need from me so I don't get those delinquency warnings, right? Ring, ring. Hey, Dave from Target. I'm like, how's it going? Hey, Elizabeth, remember I told you about those emergency calls? Oh, how many cartloads today? Well, our chill section just went down. Let's say about 3, 4, 6 pallets. Okay, we'll see what we can do. Okay, we need someone like less than an hour to get here right now. I'm like, okay. We didn't have the refrigerated truck, by the way. Thank you, Feeding San Diego. We finally got, after 2 years, a 24-foot refrigerated truck, $170,000 plus dollars. You know the price went up, inflation, right? I know what to vote for. Amen. All right. So we're rushing over to Dave's at Target. He's like, with a pickup truck and a Feeding San Diego van. Thank you. And we have those freezers from San Diego Food Bank waiting at the warehouse. Woo-hoo. Thank you, Kaylin team. And Dave's like, so Elizabeth, it looks like about 9, 10, or 11 pallets. I think we're gonna need more vehicles. I'm like, and how much time do we have before this ice cream goes? Well, the chill section is still kind of working, but we need to get it out like less than, again, the hour, right? Ring, ring. Hey, Miguel, what's going? Our volunteer with his 26-footer with a lift gate volunteers his truck every week. Miguel, dude, where are you at? Otay Mesa. I'm like, bro, I need you in Eastlake. When? Like now. Okay, 40 minutes. I got to do delivery. Okay, cool. Ring. Dave, 40 minutes. Make it 39. Oh my God. Okay. So we ended up getting, I think it was like 20-something pallets. They underestimated a little bit. So we made some calls. Karen, we need to get this food out like now. Milk, cheese, ice cream, everything you see in the freezer, chill section, pizzas, salmon, bagged vegetables, and it's like they're gonna throw it away. They're literally ordering the big bins, and I'm like, don't order them, we will get people to get them. So literally we're calling our network of volunteers because we collaborate with so many different groups in the community, churches, non-churches, neighbors, anybody who needs food. I call Karen up because she's my go-to, like literally, and I'm like, okay, we know about the women's DV group, we have that human traffic rescue group, Safe House, we'll call them, we're all gonna come together, and the flood families, the refugees, where are they? We're going out there at the homeless encampments, and we literally made it happen, and nothing was thrown away. So, thank you, Jesus. That was not an off day, that was an on day. It was wild, and we get those calls all the time. And when I say that, just like when we were about to take a picture, a call was coming in. Thank you, by the way, Rachel, I know she put all these pictures and videos. There's us at the mall, so we do the malls too. We do rescue there. Farms, pet rescues, we get food. This is the Paradise Valley Hospital, Seafood City, we get food late at night. We get, this is one of those bins there. Christmas Eve, we get those calls when no one wants to show up because everyone else is celebrating, but what do? We take the calls and go, don't throw away the food, because Costco's like, we're gonna throw away all these pies. I'm like, no, we'll feed people. We'll find people, we'll bless people. Day after Mother's Day, 11 o'clock at night, 11 of our cars lined up at the back of Walmart. And we're like, okay, all right, we're gonna find people to love on. And that's what crazy is. And we're talking about this 7 days a week, 24/7. We got a text this morning, 3:05 in the morning, from the contact you gave us from Austin, Texas. We had someone from Pennsylvania say, thank you for getting us a contact in Austin for the Formula One Grand Prix, because they have up to 400,000 people coming this weekend, and there's hotels, catered food, and they needed someone to pick up. So we're getting calls from all over. all over. And it's not just limited to the nation. Of course, San Diego is our hub and everything. But we even get calls from people. I've talked to New Zealand, Japan, everywhere. Somehow, we're going to get help to someone, and food will be rescued. All right. Yay. Crazy day, right? Yay!
So one of the things that we do, that the two of us do together, is that whether she's recovering or I'm recovering, whenever we run into an issue like she talked about, she may be out there lining cars up, getting everything ready, actually on site doing the logistics, and I'm on the phone at home calling people, telling them we have 10 pallets coming in, we don't know what it is, but get here. Okay, and so together we make it happen, and it's a lot of fun most of the time. Anyway, so, do you have anything else on that?
Oh, no, we could keep going with the stories, but we're good here.
Okay, so the other one is how do we both support South Bay in this work? And so I'll go first. So right now what I'm doing is I'm running a bunch of different teams that are hoping to bring together feeding organizations within the different regions to be able to do what we're talking about today, to collaborate better, to be there as a resource for new pantries opening up and needing help. So I'm co-chairing the Live Well San Diego Food Insecurity Work Group for the South Region. I'm co-chairing the San Diego Promise Zone Healthy Communities Work Group, where we've just started a task force to look at the flood survivors' food needs that they currently have, because we know there's many people that aren't in their homes, or they're camping in their backyard, or in their garages, or living in their cars after, how many, 9 months now? Yeah. Okay, so we know that's happening, and so there's already a survey that's going out to 2,300 families to understand what their food requirements are and what their cooking needs are. So that's another big project we're working on. I advocate daily for feeding organizations. I think that's really one of my main things that I do now. And any meeting that I'm in, I'm always talking up the need for different assets that we need, and just moral support. And also, a lot of what I do and what I've always done since I started this work in 2014 is I connect with a lot of different networks. I'm part of the California Resource Recovery Association, the Association of Gleaning Organizations, which is a national organization. And so I'm always trying to keep up to speed on what's going on in the industry, the new things that are coming up that are helping us out. And also things like the different companies that are coming up now that are selling food that's at a reduced rate, that instead of, donating all their food directly to organizations like ours, there's another tier that's happening where people can get reduced meals the night that they're prepared. So it's all good. There's more than enough food to go around. I totally believe that. So anyway, so we're helping to do that. So, and then also, I also help Liz every Saturday morning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's like one of our, she's the president and founder of I Love to Glean, and yet she volunteers with us so humbly and has great ideas, and we've worked together for, what is the math, right? 8 years. And what we do for South Bay, we're Life Acts, and people are like, who, what, where, when, how? We've been around for 35 years in food rescue. My parents started it, and it just came out of need because we used to be at the other side of the line too. And we now serve over, it's going to 18,000 plus people a month with about 50 partners, everything from Amazon, 99 Ranch, Costco, Trader Joe's, I could name a whole bunch of things, farms, hotels, just it's all out there. And we need support, we need help. And we're so grateful to the food banks and the Alliance who make it possible that we can do what we do. And we continue to have been doing this forever and ever until God says, hey, but this is a little bit of what we're looking forward to, is that, of course we need more capacity support. We're operating, I know Karen, she used to have the warehouse. We used to have a 25,000 square foot facility, then 7,000, and then now we're at 750 square feet. And again, doing this all to feed that many people, and we need more education out there. So I know with, like the minute that we have left, again, there's unprecedented increase of that food waste. We love educating businesses, restaurants, tier 1, tier 2, and letting them know, hey, we're your friends. We're not here to make it impossible. We want to connect. We want to connect you to the community and the spot of joy that we have. You want to go ahead and share? That's one of them.
Yeah, so mostly the spots of joy that we have are in our relationships, and one of the things that's really unique about feeding organizations is they take care of each other. They are compassionate with each other, probably because they're already compassionate feeding people, but we really have a good, strong alliance, just on a social level. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about is what do we go from here? What's a key solution? Okay, so my key solutions are providing an equitable and just food system throughout the county. We know right now that South County, South Central, and East County do not have the resources that Central and North County have in regards to the food banks as well as commercial repurposing kitchens. So we know that we're lacking those things, and that's one of the main reasons my organization started. The other thing is that the point of my organization is to build a food hub where we can jointly come together with multiple organizations, and we can collaboratively have larger space for freezers, refrigerators, larger transportation, and we can bring it into a central location that multiple organizations can then come and get the food from or work out of. So I think, how was that? Quick. Yeah, we could talk forever,
Yeah.
yes. Anyway, thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, thank you.
It's the end of the day. We're getting casual over here. Okay, so hopefully it was just nice to hear from others and also maybe some ideas of like, what kind of partnerships am I working on? Or what are those like small replicable things that you are maybe doing right now and opportunities? And so we're gonna get you up and moving with a fun activity because I can see that we're getting sleepy and I don't wanna have to turn the AC on and make us cold because that's not gonna be nice. So we have a little breakout activity here. So we wanna encourage, whatever makes sense to you. If there's someone sitting next to you that you're like, I never have time to talk to you about X, Y, and Z, then sit with that person. But if you're looking for new partnerships, maybe you find someone who you don't know. And so we have these like puzzle pieces, pretty cute, and we're gonna put them together over the next 30 minutes as this big puzzle that we're all making together. And so what we would love for you to do with the puzzle piece is discuss with some folks around you possible ways you can support each other. And like, it can be big dreams of like a food hub, or it can be something like tangible where you're like, actually, next week we can share this vehicle. I don't use it on Wednesdays. That's a small step, but it has a big impact. So any clear collaborations that emerge from chatting with each other? Do you have resources you can share? Do you want to exchange contact information? What happens when we link arms? And hopefully you got some inspiration. So you can use as many puzzle pieces as you want. You can bring them up to us when you're done, and we'll like start a little puzzle wall. And please introduce yourselves to each other first. It's not on this slide, but I hope you would know to do that. And then we'll just keep repeating over the next like 25 minutes. And then we'll share a little bit about like what are some of the things that came up and see if when we walk out today that we have a couple of things that we can work on. So I'm just gonna read a few. Let's see. Garden 31 Farms, source of produce for Plus Box and other distributors. Gleaners could help with the bumper crops. That's a cool partnership with Garden 31. Here's another one. Let's see. Joint grant, education, food nutrition, Red Earth Kitchen. I see share a driver 1 day a week. Let's see what else. Joint outreach and sharing educational resources. Exchange of ideas for small food agencies to let larger food banks know what's working. That's a like little work group. Let's see. Grants available to our distribution network. Collaborate use of vans through Van Hub. Oh, a Van Hub. That makes me think of like a car rental model of like sharing vans. Let's see. Produce Good will help senior gleaners understand the farmer's market model. Networking, taking pictures of each other. That is so sweet. Exchange of ideas and resources. Okay, let's see this. College feeding organization, collaboration for volunteers. I'm going to read one more and then I'll let people share as well. Community listening circles, multi-generational. Wow, these are so good. Through our gardening workshops, educating our staff, clients, and community members about food recovery efforts, letting folks know about a community that wants them fed. Does anyone want to share about something that they discussed in their group that you're really excited about and you think you might work on after this? I see some hands lingering. I'm coming to you. And we have like 5 minutes, so.
Okay, so this is a much smaller scale thing, but it's a community event that I absolutely love because it's an individual thing. The local crop swaps. So I go to the Vista one, but there's one for Oceanside, there's one for Carlsbad, and it's basically if you have any extra garden produce or tree fruit produce or plants or homemade bread, I've seen everything. You just take it, you have like in the back of your car or a table set up, you just put it out, walk around, you can take whatever anyone else has brought. It's an amazing local event. So wherever you're located, just look up like your city name and crop swap, see if somebody's organized it. And speaking of messy stories, I once had a bumper crop of beans from my garden, and I forgot that Vista is the second weekend of the month, not the first. So I went, nobody was there, and I'm like, well, so I went to the farmer's market instead and put it out for free, and it was gone in 5 minutes. But yeah, so crop swaps, I love them.
Who else wants to share something they were thinking through?
Hello, my name is MC. I work for the Union of Pan-Asian Communities. I'm a gardener for the gardening program there, which is new. So if you know UPAC, but you didn't know we had a gardening program, we do. Seeing all the challenges with refrigeration, transportation, refrigerated trucks, we are exploring. So one of our sites does mental health programs and all kinds of programs for adults, and it is at 54th and University, right next to Viet Dong, if you know where that is. There is an existing relationship with Viet Dong, the supermarket, and we are trying to do food recovery directly with them across the parking lot. No truck needed. We have staff. We have members who can carry things. We have refrigeration capacity, and we have a relationship. And now we have sort of like, hey, there are all these different organizations who are doing this at a way more difficult scale. Like, we can do this, just you and us. Like, we can recover some food and feed our members who cook at least one meal together every single day. So that's feeding like 20 to 100 people, depending on the day. Yeah. So I'm excited to have this network so that there's like, you know, models when Viet Dong leadership are like, we have cold feet. We don't really understand what this would look like. It's like, well, a lot of people do know what this would look like, and it would look great.
That's awesome. Anyone else want to share? We have a couple minutes. Yeah.
So, hi everybody. I work for the Solana Center on SB 1383. So it's really cool to meet some of the food recovery organizations we've been referring people to, and we also created a connection. I just created a connection with Produce Good, and we're gonna talk about education in schools and combating food waste there. So if you're a food recovery organization and we haven't already talked, I would love to talk to you about whether you have capacity for more food generating businesses and just anything else you'd like to share that we might not know when we're sending people your way out in the field. So yeah, super excited to be here.
Speaking of, I had these little contact cards and they might have walked out of the room. So if you need to use a puzzle piece to exchange information, just do that. These are such great ideas, though. I'm already thinking, just like as someone who, I'm not doing food recovery every day at this time in my life, but I do support the Linda Vista Farmers Market and like work with Bayside. I don't think I see anyone from Bayside in here right And I'm like, oh, I bet we could recover some produce from our local Vietnamese supermarket that's walking distance from Bayside Community Center and the farmer's market. Oh, even probably from the farmer's market with the farmer's market model. So I'm like, oh, I've been doing this for months and almost 2 years now, and this just gave me that idea. So thank you for that. Such the power of like thinking through things together. So you're probably wondering, like, now what? We like started to talk. We had some space today, and there's some percolating ideas, but we obviously need more space to talk to each other. And so one thing that came out of the work that this like small group of like 6 organizations has been doing with us over the last year or two was that we need everyone. And it's been some time since we've hosted like working groups or spaces just for food recovery organizations to connect. I know you're all part of like a million different meetings and groups, especially with SB 1383, that are sometimes like really in the weeds of like the tier 1, tier 2, what's being rolled out now, but where's the space where we can do this? And so we are officially launching in 2025 a food recovery collective. So we'll be kind of helping to steward it through the San Diego Food System Alliance, but it's a space for food recovery organizations to strengthen and deepen connections. So it's not a working group where we're going to be like making an action plan and a work plan and figuring. It's really about just strengthening those connections and doing this work together a little bit better and having fun. So we held our first food recovery networking night a few months ago, and then we're like, we should expand. And so if you're interested in being part of whatever this space becomes, because there's no roadmap right now except let's start gathering and holding space for each other. We have a little sign-up sheet up here, so as you leave, just drop your email. We'll get you on that email list, and then we'll just figure out together what that's gonna look like. And I know the first thing we wanna do this next year is to host a networking night again, have some good food and music, and then show the full version of the video earlier. So with that, I think we're gonna close out because we're already at 4:30. I can't believe it. But thank you all for being here. At the end of the day, it's such a hard time to like keep it going. Please take pictures of the puzzle pieces that have miraculously made it onto this wall here before they fall off, and give a round for each other. I don't know.